Thank you all so much for clicking on the Seattle Seahawks Today video. I greatly appreciate it. We're going to break down some more trade targets that the Seahawks could explore before the NFL trade deadline. But first, if you haven't already, please subscribe. We are almost to 10,000 subscribers. That's awesome. You guys are the absolute best. But we also know about half of you watch the show and yet aren't subscribed. So if you want consistent updates on the Seattle Seahawks, let's hit that big red button and join the channel. Now, as promised, we're taking a look at some Seahawks trade targets. Now, originally, my plan was going to be to feature all types of edge rushers, expensive guys, non-expensive guys. Carlos Dunlap was going to be near the top, and then Seattle got ahead of the game and already traded for Carlos Dunlap, the deal that they made on Wednesday, sending B.J. Finney and a 7th-round pick for Dunlap. We broke that down on the channel within minutes of it happening. As a reminder, I'm a big-time fan of this move. They needed more pass rush help. Now they've got Dunlap, and that is a significant addition, along with Benson Mayowa. L.J. Collier will still rotate in, along with Alton Robinson, DeMontre Moore. Maybe you get Rasheem Green and or Darrell Taylor playing at some point. So this does lessen the need in a significant way for the pass rush for Seattle. I still think they should explore, however, adding even another pass rusher because they probably need more than just Dunlap. What is very tricky for Seattle, number one, is the cap space that they have isn't a lot. They can find their way around it, but they're probably going to try and find cheaper players. The biggest issue is Seattle's very light on draft capital. They have a 2nd rounder, a 4th rounder, a 5th rounder, a 6th rounder. They just sent the 7th for Dunlap. The 1st and the 3rd went for Jamal Adams. So in terms of assets, what Seattle can offer, there's not that much because you don't want to trade away that many players on your roster already because you kind of need those guys to help out and win in this year. So this will be the pinned comment on today's video before I start to break down some more trade targets. Should the Seahawks even make more trades? It's a simple Y for yes and N for no. If you get that ad break here on YouTube, just scroll on down and get your votes in. All right, now let's dive into some of those trade targets. I'm not exploring the superstar names. You're not going to see J.J. Watt. Simply not going to happen. But Takk McKinley could still make some sense for the Seahawks. Now, he fits perfectly in that Leo, kind of that hybrid linebacker, defensive end, pass rusher-focused guy, because it's exactly what he's been doing with Atlanta. Remember, Dan Quinn was fired, ran a very similar defensive style there. So Takk McKinley fits well in that. The issue here, which is both good and bad for Seattle in terms of the cost, he has not played very much. Since week 2, he has played just 27 snaps, and he's not going to play Thursday night against Panthers. He has already been ruled out because of a groin injury. And that injury has hurt his trade value. When he's been out there, he's been good. The 8 pressures for his limited snap count, 14.5% pressure rate. That is good. If you can get him for one of your remaining day 3 picks, probably your 5th or your 6th, I'd jump all over that. He'd be a 1-year rental. He's not overly expensive, but Atlanta might try to hold on to him because the value, it's just not that good. He might be able to rehab it and allow the Falcons to get a higher comp pick later on next offseason. A very big name here is Ryan Kerrigan, one we've talked about a lot on this channel, especially at the beginning of the season. And spoiler alert, Ryan Kerrigan is playing quite well once again for the Washington football team. But the situation has changed for both Seattle and for Kerrigan here. Kerrigan having a very good year, 8 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. He is once again turning towards being a double-digit sack guy as he's been for most of his NFL career. The flip side here is Washington is harboring NFC East competition hopes, and Kerrigan costs about $6 million over the rest of the, just under $6 million the rest of the season. Now, they could try and work something out. That might be a little bit expensive, and with limited draft capital, after having traded for Carlos Dunlap, I think the odds of Kerrigan have dropped for the Seahawks. But let me know in the comments section who you want the Seattle Seahawks to trade for. Is it a defensive guy, maybe looking for some offensive help? We'll break down both sides of the ball here. But let me know what player you want the Seahawks to trade for. Let's talk Aldon Smith now. I think this might have made a little bit more sense again before the Dunlap trade, but there is still some rationality behind it. He offers pass rush ability, and importantly, he's cheap. signed a 1-year, $2 million deal. You still pay about most of that because you got some per-game roster bonuses that are coming up due, which the Seahawks would have to pay for. But I think a day 3 draft pick is about right for Aldon Smith from the Cowboys' perspective because they're bad this year. They're trading away players on 1-year deals like Aldon Smith is. So here's my trade proposal for Seattle and for the Cowboys. Let me know who you think says no. It's S for the Seahawks, C for the Cowboys. Aldon Smith goes to Dallas in exchange for a 2021 fifth-round pick. Now, they can make that a conditional pick if you want, probably tie it to either Smith re-signing with the Seattle Seahawks or, even more likely, Seattle winning the Super Bowl, for example. You put Aldon Smith, Carlos Dunlap, you can still rotate in Benson Mayowa as well. That's a much better pass rush group than what Seattle started off with even just a couple of days ago. Another very cheap trade target is to provide some extra depth and some familiarity. It's one Jacob Martin. Remember, he played for Seattle back in 2018, was part of the Jadeveon Clowney trade, but he's much cheaper in both salary and the cost of a draft pick than J.J. Watt would be. Look, I'd love to get J.J. Watt to Seattle. I don't really see it happening. It's a fun idea, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. So an under-the-radar name here that has some familiarity, I think could be cheap to just give some extra depth in the pass rush for Seattle. We're going to break down some more targets, but first you guys should head over to our sportsbook partner, BetUS, and win some money betting on the Seahawks this year. Hey, that line against the Niners, it's dropping. It's down to 3 right now in favor of Seattle. It was 6.5. That's pretty good odds there. I think Seattle wins this game and covers. But you can do it by going to chatsports.com/bet. Using the promo code you see on screen, Seahawks125. You put down $100. They're going to give you a 125% deposit bonus, meaning you got an extra $125 to bet with just in case you get some of those bets wrong. Let's talk Quinnen Williams now here, the big name that I think you should at least try, but I want to emphasize, don't get your hopes up. There was the report of the Jets shopping Quinnen, and that was immediately disputed by all other Jets beat writers because Manish Mehta's not very good at his job. And there's no reason for the Jets to just give him away. Quinnen Williams already has 5 tackles for loss this year. He's got 3 sacks. He was the number 3 overall pick in the 2019 draft. Don't get me wrong. If I'm Seattle, I'm calling and I'm saying, hey, New York, I got a second rounder for you. I mean, we made a great deal with Jamal. We'll send you a second too. The issue is, I don't think the Jets are going to give him away. Joe Douglas, I think, is a potentially good GM. Adam Gase sucks, but Joe Douglas does not. He got a haul for Jamal Adams. I think he's asking for a haul for Quinnen when teams call. So I would offer the second. I just don't really have a whole lot more that I can offer. I can throw in the 4th or the 5th, but that doesn't really move the needle. Any of the players you'd be willing to move, that doesn't help at all. David Moore, Jacob Hollister. So I think the Jets say no. I would try, but Seahawks fans, don't get your hopes up for a Quinnen Williams trade. Back to some cheaper options here, this time on offense. I do want to briefly mention some players here. About John Ross. There's, of course, the familiarity just locally played at Washington. The Seahawks allegedly had interest in Antonio Brown, and Ross is not getting on the football field. In terms of what you would have to offer, I mean, I think it's a 2022 7th-round pick. I think the Bengals say yes. John Ross asked for a trade because he's not playing football. He hasn't been very good. And as a flyer shot for the Seahawks, why not? I mean, you could put Penny Hart back on the practice squad. No one's going to claim him. I don't know if Josh Gordon is going to return this year. Philip Dorsett, in theory, should come back soon. Freddie Swain and David Moore have been sharing wide receiver 3 duties, but it gives them another vertical speedy threat. If the Seahawks, by the way, want to look at other receivers, well, they have some options in that area as well. And I think the Houston Texans are a team the Seahawks could call. Allegedly, all of their receivers are on the trade block right now. Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Randall Cobb, Kenny Stills. Issue is, those guys are expensive. Kiki Cutie, however, is not. And he is the cheapest option among the Texans wideouts in terms of a trade, both from the draft capital it would cost. I think anything Houston might take at this point, because the former 4th rounder is not playing. He's got 2 catches this year. He's played like a dozen snaps this season. He's caught up in a numbers game, but he was a former 4th-round pick. And if you're Seattle, who'd you rather have out there, Kiki Cutie or Penny Hart? I think it's Kiki Cutie, but that's just me. In general, I don't think this Seahawks team needs another wide receiver. but I don't think it could hurt. And if you could get someone for a future 7th rounder in next year's draft, it's not that bad of an idea. But get your votes in here. I think the answer is no, but what do you guys think? Do the Seahawks need another wide receiver? 1 for yes, 0 for no. I did want to mention defensive backs here as well. Look, they've been a bit banged up on the outside. I still wonder if nickel corner, though, remains the area of concern. And Desmond King, I think, fits pretty darn well into that hybrid nickel corner safety role the Seahawks have used with Marquise Blair before his injury and Ugo Amadi, who has been, inconsistent so far. He lost playing time when the Chargers signed Chris Harris. Now, Chris Harris, currently on IR, should come back at some point. Means King will lose playing time again. That trade cost, I'm not quite sure what it is. King is a good football player. If I'm the Chargers, I'm probably asking for like a 5th round pick, somewhere in there. He's only allowed 77 yards this year in terms of passing yards allowed. He immediately fills in at the nickel corner slot. You could probably play him outside if you had to, but it gives you added depth at safety. I'd explore it. You can call the Dallas Cowboys, too, and say, hey, what do you guys want for all of your pending free agents at cornerback? Jordan Lewis, Chidobe Awuzie. But King was the one who jumped out to me, so I did want to wrap up the video with him.